Welcome to the show, folks. This is Wrestling Changed My Life. Here we go.
If you don't think you can beat someone, why even go out there and wrestle? You're just wasting your time.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
You know, if I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gents, welcome back to Wrestling Changed My Life. This is your host, Ryan Warner. My guest today is the great John Fisher, four-time All-American from Michigan, Olympic trials runner-up to one John Smith. This was a great episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Fan of the Week goes to Derek Morford, Mercer County alum, former Alito Green Dragon. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. Hope all is well. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Beat the Street Chicago. Our virtual gala is actually happening on June 6th from 8 to 9 p.m. That's Saturday, June 6th, 8 to 9 p.m. I'm on the Young Professionals Board of Beat the Street Chicago. And folks, if you've ever done anything for me, please register for this event. You can do so by going to WrestlingChangeMyLife.com and click on the Beat the Streets Virtual Gala tab on the homepage. WrestlingChangeMyLife.com, click on the Virtual Gala tab on the homepage. And that's it. Let's give it up for John Fisher. So let's start at the very beginning, John Fisher. Coach Bentley, I know that name means a lot to you. When did you first come in contact with him, and how did he kind of influence you as a kid growing up?
I could talk about Mr. Bentley forever.
Let's get into it, baby.
Matter of fact, Mr. Bentley was my next door neighbor. He lived a house down from me, okay? And so I knew him since I was like 5 years old when we moved over on Stockdale Street in Flint. And I really got to know him when I got to high school because, I was on his wrestling team, and he's one of the best coaches, I've ever had. He's just a great man. Great man.
What was it about him? Was he one of those guys who had a lot of love for his athletes and would do anything for them, or what made you trust him so early on?
I trust him because he was always honest, and I knew that he had my best interest. It wasn't just, he wanted me to be successful to make him look good. He treated me like I was one of the better wrestlers on the team, but I saw how he treated the wrestlers who weren't as good as me. And that really impressed me because, since I've been wrestling for a while in, high school and in college, and seeing that a person, the way they treat people, the lowest people, I won't say the lowest.
Yeah.
Who aren't as talented, they're treating you just the same. They're treating everyone the same. He gave guys who weren't as talented, he spent just as much time with them as he did with me. And that impressed me, because I saw that he wasn't just, because I'm winning, okay, I like John Fisher. This individual isn't as successful. I don't have to waste time for him. He treated us all with respect, and I really loved him for that.
And what was Flint like back in the early 80s? Because you hear a lot about it now, but I don't know much about it in the early 80s. Man, what was it like, and what was your reality growing up in Flint?
Man, Flint was a hidden gem. The way people think about, the way Flint is now because of, the automotive industry went away, the water, it's a little rough now. But when I grew up, it was a hidden gem, In the summer times, you always had things to do. They had sporting activities. We had some of the best schools. It was just a great time, great place.
A lot of great athletes from that area, too.
You got people, like Glenn Rice, Andre Rison, It's tons of great athletes there. Tons of great. The McGee twins. I don't know if you know much about basketball. The twins who went to USC. They're from there. Just a lot of great. Jim Abbott, baseball player.
Yep.
From there. So there's a lot of great athletes from there.
And did you do a lot of stuff growing up or just wrestling?
When I was younger, I did everything. I did soccer, I did track, I did basketball. But once I got to high school, I just focused on wrestling. I went out for the basketball team, and I made the basketball team my sophomore year. But Mr. Bentley came to me and he says, "Hey, John, do you want to ride the bench or do you want to be a star?" So I said, "Hey, I want to try to be a star." Basketball, we had a lot of talented individuals in Flint. So I wasn't the tallest person in the world. So I was wrestling.
Wait, so you were going to not wrestle your sophomore year and just do basketball?
Well, no, I wanted to see if I could make the team.
Okay.
I wanted to see if I could make the team. It was a challenge. I knew there was a lot of talented people on the team, so I just wanted to see if I could make it. And I made the team, but, I ended up wrestling. It was a great thing for me to do, wrestling.
When did you get involved with the Black Cat Wrestling Club? I'm sure that had a big impact on you.
That was my 10th grade year because I didn't start wrestling until the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I would have wrestled in middle school. Middle school in Flint was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. We didn't have freshmen, weren't in the high school then. So I went out for the team as a 7th grader, but I waited too long. I didn't have my physical. I waited too long to get my physical, so I had to wait. So then I started wrestling in 8th grade. And then once Mr. Bentley saw me, like in the 9th grade, that summer I started wrestling for the Black Cats. And that helped my wrestling a lot because I was able to, go all over the state and go all over the country. The one thing that Mr. Bentley did for me, he showed me that there's great people all over the country because we used to just wrestle around in Flint and you're beating guys in Flint, so it's a small pool. And then once we started beating guys in Flint, he started taking us outside of Flint and then, outside of Flint, all around the state. Then he started taking us all around the country. And then that's when I started seeing, there's talented people all over the place. If you want to be the best, you got to work hard because there's people working hard all over the place.
So he'd go out of his way to take you guys to all these tournaments back then.
Oh, yeah. And guys who couldn't afford it, Mr. Bentley would pay for it. Usually, like in the summer times at the Black Cat Wrestling Club, what we do, we practice Tuesday and Thursdays, and then we go to a tournament on Saturday. And that's what was like the whole summer.
Gotcha.
So in the summertime, you get like 50 matches in the summer. And so, of course, you're going to improve getting all that wrestling. And it was fun.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was hard work. It was, it was fun.
Summer wrestling's the best. There's like everyone kind of has a little bit a lighter, just a pep in their step. Everyone's laid back. It's summertime. It's nice weather. So where was the Junior Nationals at back then? Was it at UNI or Iowa City?
It was UNI.
Gotcha. Was that the mecca of summer wrestling, just like it is now?
That was the ultimate, going out there. And I remember going out there. I think I went out there 2 times. I went out there my junior year, and I went out there my senior year. And you would see the best guys in the country wrestling freestyle and Greco, and it was exciting. And some of the same guys you saw there, you would see them in college.
Right.
Some of the best. And then it was in the summertime. It was always fun because you go to practice, then you hanging out with guys, and it was just great.
Right. And when did you make the jump from, because you were an undefeated state champ as a senior, and obviously had one of the great all-time careers at Michigan. When did you make the jump or the mental switch, or when did it hook you to say, this is my shit? Like, I'm going to be elite college wrestler doing this. When did it really click for you?
I guess maybe probably my senior year. I remember Mr. Bentley used to give us amateur wrestling news.
Yeah.
And I used to love to look at the amateur wrestling news because you would see who's national champs or freshman of the year, and you see these people, and then I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be an amateur wrestling news because it was a big publication back then. And I started saying, well, working hard, putting the time in, what you put in, you get out,
Mm-hmm. And so that really made an impact on you. Now, when you think about your situation for college, I came across this name, Don Coleman.
Yes.
Who is that?
That's my uncle. That's my great uncle. That was my mother's first uncle. And my uncle Don went to Michigan State, and he was tackle. He played football for Michigan State. As a matter of fact, he's the first Michigan State player to have his number retired. First player ever, to have it retired. And actually, when my senior year, my mother wanted me to wrestle at Michigan State.
Oh, for sure.
Wanted me to wrestle at Michigan State. I always wanted to go to Michigan. But the reason she wanted me to go to Michigan State, because my uncle went there. He was still there as like a professor, and she felt it was somebody who would look out for me.
Right.
That was my hardest choice, telling my mom, no, I want to go to Michigan. And my father, he was like, hey, go where you want to go. And it worked out. And my mother, eventually, she came around and she thought it was a great choice.
Were your mom and pops athletes back in their day?
No, my parents, they weren't athletes.
No?
But really, the people, those two people influenced me more than anybody, and they were hard workers and instilled good values, in me. And it's not always what they said. I saw what they did, and they were hard workers. My mother is one of the most mentally tough women, persons I've ever known in my life. My mother was just inspiration to me. And my father, great guy, hard worker, honest. And I saw that, it's a different thing, person telling you what to do, but then you see it. And so they instilled great values for him.
Just that old Midwestern discipline, that salt of the earth,
Yes, great people, great people.
So when you got to Michigan, back then, freshman phenoms were pretty rare. You had your Randy Lewises and you had your Barry Davises, and your freshman year, was that when you beat Barry Davis your freshman year at the Midlands?
Yeah, that's when I beat Barry.
So that's big.
That was my second time wrestling Barry. My attitude going into college was that every match I wrestle, I'm gonna go all out, and it's like the guy beats me, he's gonna know he's been in the match.
Right.
And that was my attitude. And I remember the first time, actually Barry was my first loss in college, because we went to Northern Open, and I wrestled him. And back then, Northern Open, spectators can come on the mat, and just check things out. So I'm wrestling Barry, we're kind of going at it. And it's the third period, it's tied up. And so I look around, and then I'm seeing all these people around the mat, and I'm like, man, like, what's up? And then I kind of froze up. I didn't wrestle like I was wrestling the first two periods and ended up losing that match. And so after that match, I was pretty disappointed in myself. Like, why the hell did you, stop wrestling? You see all these people, you're freezing up or whatever. That's not you. And so I said, if I ever have an opportunity, that's never going to happen again. If I ever have an opportunity to wrestle him, I'm going to wrestle him the whole match. And then a couple of weeks later, the Midlands, we ended up wrestling again.
You got the dub at that one. How big of a name was Barry Davis back then, though?
He was the man. He was. He had just came back from the '84 Olympics. He took second in the Olympics. He was a silver medalist.
Yeah.
So I was competing against a silver medalist, and I think at that time he's already graduated. No, he was I'm trying to think.
No, because he went down to 118 and beat McFarland in the finals that year.
That might have been his second title. He was
okay.
Diamond State champion in '84, silver medalist.
So I mean, were you like a blue chipper, or was everybody like, who the heck is John Fisher, taking Barry to the deep waters of the Northern Open?
Knew me, but I wasn't a blue chipper, or anything like that, because really the colleges that were recruiting me, Michigan State, and LSU, and some smaller colleges. Now LSU, Larry Shakatano was the coach there, and I went down there for a recruiting trip, and actually Kevin Jackson was already down there. I went there for a recruiting trip, had a great recruiting trip. Only problem is that it was too far. If it wasn't as far as it was, I might have went to LSU. And then I like Larry Shakatano because they had a All-American, a returning All-American named, I think his name was Robbie Johnson. And I asked Shakatano, I says, well, what about Robbie, because we would be going the same weight. And he said, well, you know what? I think you can beat him, but if you can't, you'd redshirt. And I like that honesty because how my coach was, Mr. Bentley was, because Shaq could have said, hey, I know you'll beat him. But he was honest. He said, hey, I think you can beat him, but if you can't, you redshirt.
Right.
So, but it was just too far.
Whatever happened to him, like after LSU dropped the program, was he involved in wrestling at all, or?
Shaq Atano?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Actually, he was with USA Wrestling. He was still involved in wrestling, but I don't think he ever coached another college team. But he was involved in USA Wrestling a lot.
Man, it's crazy to think that LSU had a team. That's so cool to imagine, Like even UCLA used to have a program. That's where the Schultzes went, It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's sad that they're, dropping programs like that. And I think I just heard they dropped Old Dominion.
Yep.
And that's just sad.
Yeah.
Wrestling's a great sport.
The best. Obviously, we're gonna say that, but so take me to the Midlands though. So you have Barry again in the finals. Was it at the finals when you beat him?
No, actually, it was the semis. I wrestled him in the semis.
Man, was it a close one, or did you put it on him?
They had back then, sometimes they would have Midlands. They would have different type of rules, and one of the rules, if you beat a guy by 10 points, the match was over. So I beat him 13-3. So it was a match.
Wow, that's a statement, man. As a true freshman coming in, beating Barry Davis 13-3 at the Midlands. I mean, back then the Midlands was everything. It was huge.
One of my favorite tournaments. Matter of fact, a few years later, Barry and I wrestled again. Barry, he's a good guy.
Yeah. And
we were in the finals, but this time we were at 34. We wrestled the first year. My freshman year was at 26. We wrestled at 134, and before the match, we were in the finals. The announcer says, and it's a rematch of from his freshman year, and Barry laughed,
Man, I grew up about 2 hours west of Chicago, and my dad would always say, hey, this small school in Chicago, Northwestern, they host this tournament called the Midlands, and it is the cream of the crop, and it's the only tournament where, I mean, I don't know if it was the only one, but he would say it was, where non-college guys would wrestle college guys. And I thought it was just the coolest thing. And so we were obsessed with the Midlands as kids. And I think my first year was probably 99, 98, whatever year Bill and Mike Zadek met in the finals and they decided to default, whatever that was. That was my first year. But man, Midlands holds a special place in my heart. I love that tournament.
It's a great tournament. I remember going back and looking at some old brackets. You go online and some of the guys are there, there are Olympians in there. Yeah. There's, two-time national champs, and it was just a great tournament. Great tournament. One of my favorites.
Great tournament. And you mentioned you had gone up to 136 or 134 when you wrestled Barry again. It reminded me, though, you were in the heyday of the big weight cutting, man. And you had a college coach who was an old school guy. What was the weight cutting scene like back then and on Michigan specifically?
Well, for myself, I didn't have to cut much weight until my senior year.
Okay.
And then really when I really started cutting weight was when I graduated. Because when I graduated, I weighed 156 pounds. And I wrestled freestyle. Back then, the weight class was 136 and a half.
Ooh.
So I cut from 156 to 136. And it wasn't as bad as it sounds, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't cut a lot of weight when I was younger, because when I was in high school, I used to think 2 pounds was a lot of weight to cut. I used to 2 pounds, and then, every year I had to cut a little bit more. But like I said, once I graduated at 156, cutting down to 136 and a half. And to do that, you have to be in pretty good shape just to cut that much weight. Because once it's a gradual cut, because I was making it, say Sunday night, I'd be 156. And then by Saturday, I'd have to be 136 and a half. So you gradually would have to cut it down. And then your last day, it would be 5 pounds of water weight. You would just take down 5 pounds of water weight.
Right.
But to be able to do that, you'd have to be in good shape just to be able to do that. Or if you cut the weight and then you try to wrestle, you'd be a mess. You just couldn't do it.
I mean, think about that. You're exactly right. Think about what other sport do the people who are going to compete have to run 5 miles a day before it's sitting in a sauna all day just to get the weight off. It's like, God, especially back in those days, that's the big time weight cutting era. It's just crazy. And wrestling's come a long way, fortunately.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. I kind of wish when I was wrestling back then, that some of the weight cutting things they have now, where you can only cut so much weight or, and all that stuff, it'd be so much better now, so much better.
And you had a super long career. When did you retire from freestyle?
I retired I was 38 years old, my last match.
What year was that? Like 97, 98? Did you wrestle like 2000 Olympic trials?
I'll let you do the math. I'm 54 right now, and so I retired at the last match I wrestled was 38.
Okay. I'm in sales. I'm bad with numbers. We'll get there though. But I mean, what I was getting at though is you had an incredibly long freestyle career, and you must have gone all over, man. What are some of your more memorable international trips? Did you ever go over to Russia or anything like that?
Yeah, I went to Russia a few times. I remember going to this tournament it was a town Ulande. And it's like, it was so cold there, but the people were just so nice. It was so nice. But actually what was crazy, if I knew you were to ask me that, I would have showed you this picture. I could have found this picture of these kids because I felt like a rock star over there. The way they treated me. It's funny, they called my name. They gave me a nickname, Black Death. Because they didn't see many black guys over there,
Right.
But the people over there, they treated me nice. It was just a great time, and then it was a great time.
And who were some of the Americans on that trip? Do you remember?
I'm trying to think. People like Kendall Cross, Royce Alger, Kevin Jackson. I'm trying to think. My memory's not as good now.
Well, that heyday of USA Wrestling is so fun to talk about. Like 88, 92, 96. There were some great guys. I mean, including yourself. Before we get to international, talk to me a little bit about college. So you were in some just loaded brackets back then. Jim George, John Smith, obviously. Who would you say was one of your biggest college rivals back then?
The biggest college rival. I guess, I would say John Smith.
Yeah, I mean, you guys in 92, obviously one of the craziest best of threes ever. I mean, it's hard to even talk about it for me because I was a little nervous to ask you. But if you want to talk about it, we can. I mean, what do you remember from those battles back in the day with John Smith?
Well, I remember the year before the Olympic trials. I wrestled him in the Freestyle Nationals in 91. And, I felt pretty confident, that I could beat him because I'm like this. If you don't think you can beat someone, why even go out there and wrestle? You're just wasting your time.
Right.
And so we wrestled in the finals, and I felt confident. I went out. I took him down the first, I got the first takedown. And so I'm, feeling good. And he took me down. He leg laced me. And, the leg lace. He leg laced me and just roll. So 15-1, match. And so that whole year, people were like, oh, John Smith, he's definitely the number one guy. He's going to represent the, America at 136.5. And that whole year training, I was saying to myself, I can beat him. It's going to be close, but I know I can beat him. So our first match, we go out. Actually, right before our first match, Dave Schultz, I was a member of Foxcatcher. Dave Schultz, great guy. Dave Schultz, one of the best technicians ever. A few minutes before my match, he says, Fish, come here. He says, I want you, when you're out there wrestling him, I want you to do your hand like this. Follow him. When he's doing all his fakes, just follow him, use your hand, I said, okay, and it was something simple, he didn't, it was something simple. So I go out there, we're wrestling, and the things Dave, told me about using my hand, it was very effective, and I beat him that match. And so the crowd, they just got silent because they couldn't believe it. John Smith, he lost the match.
What was the score? Do you remember? Was it close?
It was, I think, 6-2.
Oh, shit. So you put it on him a little bit.
First match. And then, so the second match, people hyped for that second match. And so I ended up seeing, it's funny, I saw John Smith and he saw me, and he's probably like, 30 feet away from me. And he looked, and I saw him like hit a chair or something. And then I kicked the chair, And so the second match, we come back, and it's a good match, and he ends up winning that match. And we were in a situation where he got in on a high crotch, and we were by the edge. And if I could have, I was in his crotch, and I was going to flip him out of bounds. If I could have flipped him out of bounds, I would have got 2 points. But instead of flipping him out of bounds, I slipped, went to my back, and he got 2.
Okay.
So he ended up winning that match. And then, so, people hyped up. So the third match comes out. And I'll just make this part short because I don't even like to think about it. I'll just say he got his hand. I didn't get my hand raised.
Right.
I didn't get my hand raised. There were a lot of controversial calls in that match. But I kind of blame myself because my attitude was, it's going to be close. I can beat him. I shouldn't have been thinking like that. I should have been thinking, hey, I want to dominate this match. I don't want to leave it in the ref's hands, because he was already a returning Olympic champ. And if it's close, he deserves that. I mean, it's just because the ref's going to get the benefit of doubt, and then he went on to, win the Olympics.
Right.
And the way, and let me tell you something about that. He won the Olympics, and the way they used to have it back then, they had pools.
Right.
And he had the Russian in his pool. He had
the Cuban
in his pool, and it was him. So they had the best pool. They had the toughest guys. Well, the Cuban beat Smith, and Smith tore up the Russian, and the Russian beat the Cuban. So by the point system, Smith won that pool. And so he went on, I think he beat the South Korean or North Korea, beat a Korean guy, and he was Olympic champ. And Reynoso, who beat him, I wrestled him like 6 months later in the World Cup, and I beat him. So I would have had a good chance, my chance at the Olympics would have been just as good as his, But hey, he's a great champ, one of the greatest ever, and not many people can say they beat him in his prime.
Not at all, man. I mean, there's only 5 people, and the Cuban, he beat him twice. He even beat him before that, I believe. Had you wrestled him, the Cuban, before the 92 trials?
That's the first time I ever wrestled Reynoso. That was the first time.
Gotcha. And so when you were, did you live at Foxcatcher Farm, or were you just representing the club?
I just represented the club.
Gotcha.
I didn't live out there. I just went out there from time to time to train.
Okay. So what was your RTC? I know they didn't call them RTCs back then, but what was your training environment like? Were you just the assistant coach and that was your workouts through there?
No. Well, I was still working. I was still helping out in Michigan, but I'd go out there. They would have training camps out there, and then I would go out there for a couple of weeks and train, like before nationals, or if you got an international tournament, you go out there, and and it was a great place because, like I said, people like Dave Schultz lived out there, and I remember the first time I went out to Foxcatcher Farms, I stayed at the big house. They call it the big house with DuPont. And then the next time I went out there, I was supposed to stay with Dave. And I didn't really know Dave Schultz, very well back then, because I remember he used to coach at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used to say, I used to think this is a strange guy, until I got to know him. And then I stayed at his place. And, got to know him, the best guy ever. Him and his wife, Nancy,
mm-hmm.
kids. And, I loved staying there with him, because he was the type of guy, like at nighttime. I stayed up late at night. He stayed up late at night. We'd be walking around. He'd be like, Fish, come here, man. Let me show you this. I think this would help your wrestling. So he was always thinking wrestling, and, that impressed me. So I really loved going out to Foxcatcher and be around Dave Schultz.
And he was like the coach at that time, right? Because he retired, or was he still wrestling?
He was still wrestling. Yeah, he was a coach out there. They had another guy. They had Jadornoff, Valentin. Yeah. He was out there. So it was a great training environment. He had some of the best guys, who knew their wrestling. Definitely knew their wrestling.
Did you get to wrestle Valo at all? Was that what they called him, Valo? Valentin?
Yeah, yeah, I got to wrestle Valo. He was smaller than me, but he was a tough guy. And he just knew so much technique. So that was great having him and Dave out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 of the best technicians, we've ever had.
Well, I mean, I've I've actually had Nancy Schultz on this podcast, and we've all watched the documentary Foxcatcher. I assume most people listening have. But give us a sense of when you first get out there and you see the big house. Like, did you meet DuPont face to face ever? Like, talk to him?
Yeah. Well, actually, the first time I went out there, I stayed at DuPont's place.
Okay.
You know, I stayed there, and then the next time I came out there, that's when I started staying with Dave. You know, it was a great environment because back then, like if I called, you know, DuPont and said, hey, I need tapes of such and such, they'd be there, you know, within a couple days. They would be there, you know. And so when you went out there, whatever you needed, you had it out there. So it was a great environment. You know, it's just, I just wish the things that happened hadn't happened, you know, with Dave and all of that stuff. But it was a great wrestling environment. Great wrestling.
And the facility looks sweet too. Like from the videos you look at, the wrestling room looks sick back then.
It was nice. It was nice. You know, they had everything you would want, you know. And then too, back then, the videos, you know, just watching tape, you know, you could get whatever you wanted there, you know. So it was definitely a great environment. That's
funny that little detail, like now we take it for granted, right? But back then that was a big deal to get some fresh tape on some wrestlers, you know?
Yeah. You know, and because it wasn't as accessible as it is now. You know, you go on YouTube and you can see whatever you want. You know, matter of fact, I was just checking out Jordan Burroughs and a couple of his matches with like Kyle Dake and him and David Taylor, and I was just checking it out and being amazed how the one match he's down 6-3 with, you know, 40 seconds and he wins the match. You know, so you can see stuff like that. You know, back then it wasn't as accessible, you know. And
I know. It's amazing that some of those matches from your era are available now. Like, there's quite a few from that timeline that are up now. I don't know. Like, I just don't know how people, I guess USA Wrestling probably has all of them in some big archive somewhere, but who are some of your favorite guys to watch wrestle nowadays?
Well, like I said, Jordan Burroughs, Kyle Dake.
Yep.
Jaden Cox. I think, you know, that's a
wrestler right there. Woo!
I think, you know, soon, you know, he wins an Olympic title or a couple more world championships, he'll be right up there with Jordan Dakes.
Man.
I really like him with the way he wrestles. He's a person hard to score on, and, you know, just exciting. You know, I've seen him from, like, you know, I watched the matches of him and I can't think of his name, Snyder.
Yeah.
In high school. I didn't know they wrestled in high school, and I watched the match of them wrestling in high school. You know, so
that was going to be a match this year, Cox and Snyder. I mean, that at the Olympic team trials. I mean, obviously none of it happened, but those two going at it there's going to be two matches, right? JB and Dake for that spot, and then Cox and Taylor, not Cox and Taylor. Snyder, yeah, that was going to be.
I'm looking forward to both of those matches. You know, as a matter of fact, I just saw online Dake actually Ben Askren put it together.
Yeah.
I saw that, and that was great. The back and forth.
Wrestling needs a little more shit talking. I think I like it. I'm all about it.
That's why I think I went and started looking. I wanted to look at the matches again of Jordan Burroughs and Dake. And I didn't know, because Dake was saying, you know, he can't take me down or something like that. And then I saw a couple matches. He took him down a lot.
Yeah.
He took him down a lot. So I was like, okay.
2017 was the last year they had because now they have 10 weight classes for the Worlds, but 2017 was the last year they only had like 6 weight classes. And Jaden Cox wrestled David Taylor. That match went to 3.
Yeah.
That one went to 3 matches. And then so did JB and Dake. And like that one match, Dake threw him around a little bit with that chest lock, but then, you know, Burroughs is just like a heart of a lion, dude, heart of a champion. He'll never allow himself to get beat like that.
Yes, he's a good person for people to watch, because when I watched that match, I've never seen him like panic.
Right.
You know, he's won a lot of matches in like the last few seconds, you know, because I'm thinking when I watched him and David Taylor wrestle, you know, you're down 6-3, and David Taylor's a beast. You know, 3, you know, and you need 2 takedowns, and he didn't panic. You know, I was very impressed with that, and watching his match and how he took him down. Then he needed one more takedown. and he took him down. He got up from, after the ref, they put him back up, and he took him down just like that.
Right.
It's like I'm very impressed with, that type of wrestler. He's one of my favorites.
I mean, you want to watch an absolute scrap. Burroughs versus this guy from Russia, Sidakov. These guys, every time they go... So Sidakov has beat Burroughs the last 2 years. Sidakov's won the Worlds 2 years in a row. Every single time, it's like 30 seconds left, and there's 2 or 3 lead changes in 30 seconds. It's unbelievable. It's great match to watch. But, man, you just talk about just the advancement from wrestling. How much better are kids at a younger age than they were back in the 80s when you were coming up, man? Kids are so advanced now.
Yeah, I think because of technology, it's not that they are advanced, not that they're better.
Right.
They're advanced because there's some guys in the 80s would do just as well now, you know, with the things they have. It's just that I think they have better access to, various coaches, because you can go to these training centers, all these OTCs all over, all over the country.
Right.
And so you got more access to videos. You want to look up, just like I said, you want to look up and study, matches of Jordan. You want to study matches of Cox, or you want to go back in old school and look at Dave Schultz, or, you have that access now.
Right.
To get better.
It's amazing.
And then you believe it too, because I'm thinking now you got these guys coming in as freshmen. They're not waiting until they're seniors or junior years to be national champs. They're like, I'm doing it now, because they've seen other people do it and they believe it, that it's, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. I'm coming in, I'm not waiting until I'm a junior, or, I'm winning it now.
Right, right. I mean, one of your Michigan boys, Stevan Michik, he's a freaking specimen, man. Do you ever get in there and roll around with those guys anymore?
I'm trying to, but actually maybe before this happened, two or 3 months, I went up to practice, and they were doing some drilling stuff. And actually, I went with Michik a little bit, but we were just drilling situation stuff.
Okay.
He's a hell of a wrestler.
Dude, he's fun to watch, too. Now, you and Bourmet seem to have a good relationship. Did you coach him? Because he wasn't a teammate of yours, right? He's a little younger.
He wasn't a teammate. He came in after. So, yeah, I was still coaching there when he was there.
Okay. He was, I don't know, I know about his story in high school, but don't know much about him in college, man. What was he like to coach, and what was his mentality back in the day?
Oh, man, he was intense, just like he is at coaching. He was a hardcore wrestler. He was tough, in the finals twice. He's just a hardcore guy.
And was Amin's dad around back then too?
What's that?
Was Amin's dad around?
Me and Amin, we were teammates.
Okay.
We were teammates. Yeah, he's a tough guy too, Mike. Took second in the nation. You can see where his sons get the intensity, from Mike. Just great guys.
Man, you're around some, just being a Michigan person. I mean, I don't know if old man Torella was still coming around during that time or not, but I mean, there's some great names in that Michigan history.
Oh yeah, Torella, Mark Senior, my freshman year, he was coming in the room, and Steve Frazier. Because actually, my freshman year, Steve Frazier had won the Olympics in '84, and the training program that they had in the Olympics, he brought it to Michigan. And so that really helped take us to another level.
Gotcha. I mean, and if you think back, Mark Johnson was part of he was at Iowa at that point, but I mean, a lot of those Michigan guys were legit level guys, and you come in and, you wrestled, you had 40 wins a year, all 4 years. What happened after your freshman year and your sophomore year? Did you just redshirt, or did you take a year off?
I redshirted because after my freshman year, actually it was in the Big Tens, I dislocated my shoulder, and it was an injury from high school that flared up in college, and I think it was because of it was my technique, shooting doubles and sometimes extending your arm out and not having your arms in. I put a lot of pressure on it, and so my last match in the Big Tens, my shoulder popped out. And then from then on, every match I wrestled, like when I went to nationals, my shoulder would, I'd be in a match, I'd stick my arm out and it'd pop out. And so it just progressively got worse. Like that summer, I tried to rehab it and, didn't pop out or anything like that. But my first tournament, it popped out. I was in the finals, and it popped out, and and it just progressively got worse. It got to the point where I'd sleep and my shoulder would just slide out. And so I had to have surgery, and I was out for 9 months, and that really hurt me too, because that's probably, once I started wrestling in 8th grade, being out for 9 months, that's the longest that I went without wrestling. And usually when you redshirt, guys are trying to get better. They're doing things to get better, working on their technique, working on their strength, and things like that. And then you can still go to open tournaments. So I didn't have an opportunity to go to any of those things. So that's why I set out that year.
Gotcha. And then you came back. I mean, your win total is absolutely incredible, because guys don't wrestle that many matches anymore. You had 40 wins all 4 years. Did you ever think, you're like, man, this is freaking crazy, it's maybe too much, or you just love competing?
No, I just love competing. I love competing. And like in high school, I wrestled a lot of matches. But even now, like high school, in Michigan, there's guys who have 200 matches,
right.
Over 200 matches.
Right.
So I never thought it was too much. I mean, I like wrestling. To get better in wrestling, you got to wrestle.
Right.
Wrestle.
But I mean, I think your win total, I got to see what some other ones are now. I mean, that's an incredible number, because you look at some of like the Iowa or Penn State guys now, they might only have like 20, 30 matches a year.
Yeah.
You had like 180 some wins. Do you remember what it is, the exact number? It's like 182?
I think I have 183 or 84. 183 or 84.
Dang, that's incredible, man. I mean, it's all-time record for Michigan. I swear to God, it's got to be the all-time NCAA record. I mean, I can't. I'm gonna do a little poll later on Twitter and see what it comes in at, but I can't imagine too many guys getting more than that.
Well, I know it is. It has. I have the most wins
in NCAA history.
Yeah.
Holy shit! So it is okay. I mean, that's of all the people.
What's that?
All the people who've wrestled in college, you have more wins than anyone. That's amazing. And now you're. I've read that from a young age you wanted to be a teacher. You felt a real calling to be an educator and to impact people. Talk about what that experience has been like, and what kind of school are you working at these days, and are you coaching wrestling at all there?
Yeah, I'm an elementary teacher, and the one thing I like about teaching is that you're preparing students, for life. I'm a PE teacher, so I get to see all the kids, and I like that. I get to see all the kids.
Yeah.
And like I said, teachers impact people for a lifetime. Like I said, like Mr. Bentley, like my coach. Some of the things that I learned from him have helped me to be the success I am.
Right.
And for my students, that's what I'm trying to impact on them. I want them to have great lives. I
mean, it keeps you young being around those kids too, doesn't it? They're fun.
Oh yeah, I love it. As a matter of fact, like I coach middle school, and I never thought I would coach middle school. The only reason I started coaching middle school is one of my former teammates, Stacy Richmond, who I was a high school teammate. His son was coming to the middle school, and he says, "Hey, would you coach Stacy?" His son's name is Stacy too. And I says, "Nah, I don't want to coach middle school." And then he stayed on me. And I says, "Well, Stacy, even if I decide to teach, we get out later than you, because middle school get out a little earlier." He says, "Well, I'll do this. I'll start the practice until you get there." So I said, "Okay, I'll do it 1 year." I was just going to do it 1 year. And I got there. I did it to 1 year, but I liked it so much. It's been like 9 years now. I'm sorry. I loved it so much. And I just saw how it changed kids. Because I had one kid a few years back. We started practice. We get like 60 guys out for our team. Like this year we had 60 guys on our team. Yeah, we get a lot of kids coming out. And so I had this kid. It was the first day of practice, and I'm warming kids up. And usually our first week, I go hard because I want the kids to know this is how it's going to be. And I guarantee you, if you make it this first week, you'll make it the whole. It's an 8-week season. I said you'll make it the whole season.
Yeah.
You can make it here. And so the first day of practice, I got him running, and I see this kid on the side. He's crying. I'm like, "Hey, well, what's wrong?" I'm thinking someone did something to him. And I said, anything, you all right? He says, yeah. And I says, well, why are you crying? He says, because I don't want to be here. And I'm like, well, you don't have to be here. Leave. He says, no, I can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? You can go. He said, my mom told me to come. She says, I got to go for the wrestling team, And so the kid, by the time the end of the season was over, he was loving it. And he came back the next couple of years.
Okay.
He had a smart mom. His mom knew that he needed to toughen up, and she forced him to come out for the wrestling team. And that was the best thing ever happened to him. He came out for the team. He enjoyed it. He took his lumps and everything, but over time he got better. And a lot of times I tell the guys, I guarantee you, I sit them down, I say, I guarantee you, I'm not going to say you're going to win every match. But from this day until the end of the season, I guarantee you every single one of you will be better than when you started. I can guarantee you that.
100%.
Usually, that happens, and, it's gratifying to see their improvement,
Well, especially at that middle school level, I know exactly what you mean when you say the 8-week season, because there's you have the middle school 8-week season, then you have the club season, and that's you're doing 80 matches a year, you're doing the state series, so you're doing the grassroots local level, and that's where you're really going to make a change, because I'm sure a lot of kids who come in there have never wrestled before.
Oh, yeah. You know what? The majority of the kids who come in, they've never wrestled. Half my kids never wrestled, and then you have 2 weeks to get them prepared for the season. So it helps me as a coach, because over the years I started learning, okay, this is a technique. I got to give them a foundation so they can build upon that, because I don't want some kid to come in there and they wrestle in a match and they just get beat up and they're not having fun.
Right.
I want them to, first thing I'm trying to get them in shape. And then as the season goes on, they start learning too that some guys who are more talented than them, they beat them because of their condition. I've had guys get tore up in, first 2 periods, and I keep telling them, keep going. And they just wear that guy down. And they come off, and just to see their excitement in, their face, like, oh, coach, I was getting tore up, but he just died. He just died. I said, yes, And then kids, they start seeing, okay, if I'm listening to what coach says, he's talk about, you work hard and you believe in yourself, you're going to be, you're going to have success, and some of these kids, they come in, they're nervous. And I tell them, you know what, in your match, everyone's going to be nervous. I guarantee you're going to be nervous. Don't let that guy intimidate you, because some guys come out, they're looking big, they're staring at you. And I say, if you start getting afraid, don't look at them then. Look away.
Right.
Look until the match starts. Match start, shake your hand, and you do your best. I'm going to always be proud of you. You go out and give 100%, you're a winner. I'm going to be proud of you.
Man, that's cool. I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it, man, because some of those young kids who had never wrestled before, they don't really know what it can do for them, because they don't have parents that are saying, hey, except for that one kid, a lot of kids may have no idea, and then they look back 10 years later, they're like, man, Coach Fisher, he really set me straight in middle school. That's a cool thing to have,
Yeah, and they motivate me too, because I learned sometimes you giving people advice, you're telling kids, oh, toughen up or do this or do that. And then sometimes I think when I'm having some tough time in my life or something going on, I'm saying, you're telling these kids this, you got to, do what you say,
Right.
Motivate me. And I see some of these kids, some of the things that they go through in life, I find a little bit about them. I'm like, wow, this is going home and, he's dealing with this at home and he's coming in here and this attitude, man, that's tough, and you learn a lot about kids, because
Right.
I have kids who in practice, they're so, and then I see them in a match. I'm like, damn, this little dude's a beast. When the lights come on, he's there, he's ready. He's a gamer. Maybe in practice he's not, but when it means something, and I'm impressed. And some of them, they shock me.
Man, do they know they're dealing with a legend there? Or do any of the dads come in and be like, that's John Fisher?
Yeah, but I've had some guys tell their fathers tell them, because one kid, when I first started coaching at the middle school, one kid, he went home, father asked, who's your coach? And then he says, my coach's name is John, he's John Fisher. And then the father didn't believe it.
Like, hell no.
So first, till he came to a match, he's like, you were telling the truth.
Man, so do you get involved then with the club season at all? Do you do privates, or do you just do the 8 weeks and that's good for you?
A few years back, I had a club going on, but I got busy, like my son and, just things. And then I kind of let that go a little bit. Now, I do some private stuff, but other than that, I do my middle school.
It's a lot of work, that year-round club thing. I mean, that is an incredible amount of work.
Yeah, because you got practice, and then you got the tournaments, and
right.
You can have Saturday tournaments, you can have Sunday tournaments, and it makes it a long week. And then I got my teaching,
right?
And so it makes it long.
Does your son wrestle?
He never wrestled.
No,
never wrestled.
That's okay though.
He would have been a tough kid, and he told me his freshman year at Pioneer. He went to Pioneer. One of my wrestlers, because I coached at Pioneer, I coached at high school a few years back. One of my wrestlers had told me, he says, I went to your son. I says, Fish, because, I call him Fish. He says, why don't you wrestle? Your dad, he was good and he did this. And he said, that's why, because he felt people would be comparing him. But the way my son, he played football and he did track and he was a stud. He's the type of kid that if he had wrestled, he would have been a hard worker, and his goal would have been to beat me. And by now, he would have beat me.
Right.
But I tell him now, I says, John, it's too late now. You didn't wrestle, you'll never be able to beat me now.
Is he still around the house, man, or what's he up to these days?
No, I'm proud of. I'm gonna brag on my boy a little bit.
Brag, baby.
In high school, he was a great in track, great in football, a great student. Matter of fact, he goes to DePaul now in Chicago. Okay. And he's a senior at DePaul. He's got a 3.95 grade point average. I couldn't have asked for a better son, And it's like, I wish he had a wrestle, but he didn't. He's doing his own thing, and I can respect that. And I expect great things out of him. I'm proud of my boy.
I mean, that's where I'm at in Chicago, man. DePaul's a great school.
Oh, yeah. I'm just sad that they're not going to have a graduation. My boy worked hard.
Oh, no.
Like, no, but that's what everywhere. There's no graduations in high school. There's no graduations in college now with the COVID-19. And he said that they're thinking about trying to postpone it. I don't care if it's next year. I want him to have a graduation ceremony.
Absolutely. And you got to think they're going to let them walk like this winter semester or the next spring semester. You got to think they're going to do something to make it right.
Yeah, they have to. It's just sad that, I feel for like the seniors in high school, like Michigan, they didn't have a graduation, with the NCAA, canceling wrestling, canceling the winter, all the spring sports. It's just tough, And like with me, with teaching now, we're doing online teaching. But actually, that's not bad for me because now I'm doing videos for my kids, exercise videos and doing videos showing that I'm still working out.
Yep.
Still wish I was with my kids, but the videos, I think they're enjoying them.
So you love it that much that you wish you were back there with them versus just kicking it at home. That's cool.
Oh yeah, much, yeah. I mean, I enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, it's like anytime you can impact a kid at a young age where like maybe you see someone's getting bullied or something like that and you can go up to them and give them a few words of encouragement. That's cool because the reality is that a lot of kids don't have parents who are positive or parents who are around at all. So if you can step in and do something about that, guy or girl, that's a cool thing.
Oh yeah. And then it's funny, I've been teaching since 1991. I was yeah. Well, once
so you were teaching when you were wrestling through all this stuff?
Yeah. When I tried out for the Olympics, I had a full-time job. I had a full-time job.
So did you only travel in the summer? Or did you take time off to travel in like the winter months?
I would travel in the summer, and then actually a couple times I got to go to Cuba because I had a good principal who helped me out to be able to get the time to go off. And then too, here in Michigan, we used to have winter break. Sometimes you could go to a tournament on a winter break or a spring break, and so I had the opportunity to do that. But teaching and wrestling it had kept me focused because you couldn't mess around. In the morning when I had to train, I had to train.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to do something at lunch, I had to do something at lunch or after school. So you had to be disciplined to be able to do that, you know.
So what was your daily routine like back then?
Back then, I would work out in the morning time. You know, I'd get up early. I'd work out in the morning. And then
like a run or a lift, or what kind of workout would it be?
It would vary. You know, sometime I would run, sometime I would lift. If I get someone to wrestle, I'd wrestle. I'd vary it up, you know. But I do something before school. And then being a PE teacher helped me out a lot too, because I'm active with the kids. The kids see that I'm active, you know. And most kids, they were like, "Oh, Mr. Fisher's always moving around. Do you ever stop?" You know? And if I got 10 classes a day and I'm doing things with them, that's a mini workout right there.
For sure.
Like say we're doing the mile. Say I got kids doing the mile and I'm testing them for the mile. And say, well, back then I had 8 classes. Now I have 10 classes. But say I have 8 classes that day, okay? And I run 1 mile with them. That's 8 miles I got in.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
I never had a gym teacher run the mile with me. That's cool.
You know, so I do that. And it wasn't like every day.
Right.
But then, like, say I was taking a day off where I wasn't going to wrestle or anything. This will sort of be my workout. I'm doing stuff with the kids. You know, I get my 8 miles in or whatever I'm doing.
Right. So,
you know, that'd be a workout. That you know, it keeps me young because I like to be active with the kids also. Keeps me young.
I'm doing the math in my head. First of all, you look like you're like 35 right now, and you've been teaching for almost 30 years. Are you about ready to retire? Or are you going to keep going?
Yeah. Well, here in Michigan, I've been teaching. It's 28 years, and I bought years. You can buy years. So really, I have 33 years.
You can buy years.
You can buy what you call buy years. Yeah. And so I have 33 years with my bought years. And in Michigan, you can retire at 30 years. But what I'm doing now, I'm just taking it year by year now, you know, year by year.
You've got to be the youngest looking 5th-year-old I've ever seen in my life. Coach, you could go back to the mats now, man, and get in there and scrap with these guys. I swear to God, I can't believe you've been teaching for that long. Woo.
Yeah. Well, the kids keep me young, and like I said, I try to stay active. I'm just, you know, like I said, it keeps you young. Like a few years back, I had got sick, and I couldn't be active. You know, I was sort of almost like bedridden. You know, just
what'd you get?
What's that?
What'd you get?
It was a disease called sarcoidosis. Okay. I don't know if you know Bernie Mac, but
yeah.
He had that. And it's a autoimmune disease that attacks your lungs. But mine, what it did, it attacked my brain and my spine because, and when I first was diagnosed, it was like I came from Steve Fraser camp. He had a camp in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And so after that camp, I was so tired. I couldn't believe I've never been that tired in my life. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed me with mono. He said, okay, you got mono. So the whole summer, I thought I had mono. And so when school started, the first week of school, I'd be walking, and I would just fall, you know, and that happened to me a few times, and I got scared. So I was like, you know what? I got to go, you know, the doctor and check this out. So they did all these tests, and that's when they found out that I had that sarcoidosis. And it's called, sarcoidosis. And so it just wiped me out, you know, for like 2 years. Eventually, 2 years, I gradually got better, you know, and I couldn't work out. I couldn't do anything. And so I've always appreciated life. But after getting through that, and even now, I still have to go every 6 months to get blood work to make sure it doesn't come back or anything like that. So after going through something like that, it's like every chance I can, I'm going to take care of myself. And I think if I wasn't in good condition then, that would have killed me then, you know. So
those autoimmune things are nasty.
Yeah. So, you know, I getting through that, there's 2 things. Getting through that and the death of my mother, I can get through anything.
Amen. I mean, that's there's a wrestling coach up here who's now the executive director for Beat the Street Chicago, but his name's Mike Powell. He had and still has it, you know, it doesn't go away, polymyositis. It's also an autoimmune thing where he just got so weak and tired. He went to the doctor. He's like, I used to be able to do 50 pull-ups. Like last week, I can only do like 4 now. And like gradually it got worse. He lost like 40 pounds, and he was in the thick of it for a couple years where he couldn't even walk without a cane. He still has it, and he still feels it, but not like he did then. So like, were you like bedridden? Huh?
Is he better now?
Better? Like if you saw him, you wouldn't know he had it. But I guess before he had it, he was like just jacked. He wrestled 170 at Indiana. He was a one-time All-American, but like he was like kind of like a meathead guy. But now he looks like a normal guy. But he still says that he'll never feel the same again. Like, do you feel back to 100%?
I'm good now. Because really, like I work out a lot. I mean, I like working out, and it just makes me feel good, because that situation was, like I said, beside my mother passing away, that was the worst time of my life because I felt so weak. I remember one day I was like, freak this. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to go up to work out. And I went to a gym, and I ran one lap around in the gym, and I was like, I can't make it. I went home. I was laid up in the bed for a couple of days. It just wore me out. And so I really couldn't get around. And one good thing about disease, it never got worse. It incrementally got better, but it took 2 years before I was 100% because they had me on prednisone, like the steroid. And when the doctor told me he was going to put me on steroid, it's like I never believed in taking drugs or anything like that. People trying to get jacked. I've never, messed with that. I don't drink. I've never been a drinker or anything like that. No, I didn't drink. No, I'm not a drink. I don't drink. Like, and I drank 2 times in my recruiting trip in Michigan, and then on New Year's, my freshman year. And then both times I got messed up. And then the New Year's Eve when I got messed up is the next day we were in Florida in a tournament. We were supposed to go to I don't know if it's Disneyland or Disney World, whichever one.
Yeah.
But I was so messed up and so sick that I stayed in the the medical tent the whole day. That was it for me. I was like, drinking, that's that, so college, I wasn't drinking. People already knew, like in college, give him his cranberry juice. He's good,
Man. So when you were when do you think you were at the low point of this thing? Like that fall, or did it get worse that year?
It got, well, the low point was when I knew that I couldn't get around like I wanted to. Because that year I still taught. And so that was a tough year. I was thinking I'm not going to make it. PE teacher, need to get around. So what I would do is, like, I'm a pretty active person. Like when I'm teaching, I'm moving around. I don't sit around. I don't like to sit around. But then that year I'd have to sit down, and then at lunchtime I would just go down to the lounge. I would sleep, and then after school I'd go straight home. I'd go to bed, and then.
Like at 4 or 5 o'clock, you go to bed?
What's that?
You go to bed at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah, because I was so tired. I mean, this disease. I mean, I was just so tired. I was just so tired, and then that was depressing because that was my existence, And then eventually, I went to see another doctor, a rheumatologist, because they were saying they got to get you off this prednisone because when they first started with that steroids. And like I said, I didn't take drugs or anything like that, but I was like, wow, I'll be on steroids. Well, that gets you jacked. So even though I guess I'll be jacked, but that wasn't the type of steroid. Because at first the sickness got me real thin because people would see me and like, wow, you lost a lot of weight. And I didn't notice how much weight I lost until after this sickness was over, a couple of years, I looked at some pictures and I looked like death. God. I looked so skinny. But when you get on prednisone, you gain a lot of weight, a lot of water weight. You look puffy. So I looked real big, and it was kind of embarrassing because people would see me and they were like, wow, you put on some weight, huh? And then I would always explain it to them, my sickness and stuff like that. Then it got to a point where it seems like people were like happy or something. So I just got to the point where when someone said, yeah, you put on weight. Yeah, I put on weight. I didn't even explain anymore. I didn't, because you see people, so I didn't even worry about it. And so eventually my doctor, they sent me to a rheumatologist, and I was like, well, I don't have arthritis. But then the reason they sent me to a rheumatologist, because some of the symptoms I had, that's what that doctor would deal with. So they put me on this cancer drug. I didn't even know it was called prednisone. And so, not prednisone, methotrexate. And so I was on that for a while, and eventually that got me better. And they weaned me off of that. And then ever since then, I've been fine. I just have to get blood work every 6 months for the rest of my life. And, I feel good. They say it could come back, but I used to worry about that. But I don't even worry about that. If it comes back, I'll deal with it. If it doesn't, hey, thank God.
How long has it been since you've been scot-free? 2 years, you said, or longer than that?
No. This happened years ago. This was probably 11, 12 years ago.
Okay. It's like, man, that the first time you realize you can't just like wrestler tough it out, that's a humbling thing,
Oh, yeah. I'm a believer in God. So people used to ask me, because I was like, the wrestler mentality, you tough it out, you can tough out anything, but it wasn't that way. So it got to the point where people would say, what can I do? And I would just say, pray for me. And that's what I told people. And I remember seeing my son. I remember apologizing to him, saying, I'm sorry, John, because me and my son were tight. We play and I would do things with him. I was very involved in his life, and I just couldn't do anything. And I remember telling him, said, I'm sorry. And he says, don't worry about that. I love you. And, good guy. John, my son's a good kid. And that made me feel good. And it's a tough time in my life, but you get through stuff. That's part of life. And now we're getting through something.
And you are, globally we are, but it's just great to hear about. I didn't even know about that story coming into it. Honestly, it makes sense why you're such a positive and grateful person out, because I'm sure you were like that before, but it really just drives it home after you've gone through something like that. That shit can come out of nowhere.
Yeah. You never know. Like I said, it came out. I still don't know how I got it or how it happened. It's just life.
Wow. Well, that's a moving story, and I think it's a good way to wind down. So let's talk about, just kind of wind down with this. We've talked a lot about wrestling. We've talked about some mentors in your life, your parents, Coach Bentley. If you look at all of it in total, how would you say wrestling's impacted you, or what lessons do you take away even from Coach Bentley today? Because I know you met him through wrestling, obviously. So,
well, really, it just for me. It's hard to say. It's so many things that wrestling has done for me. But one thing that stands out in my mind right now, is probably after you leave, there's probably more stuff. But one thing that stands out in my mind, all the great people I've met in my life that are still in my life. Because to be successful in anything, like especially wrestling, you got to have good people around you. And from high school, middle school, high school, and college, I've always had great people around me, great teammates, because without those people, pushing you, motivating you, picking you up when you're down, you never can be, successful. And so I credit, my parents, especially my high school coach, Mr. Bentley, my college coaches, Dale Barr, Joe Wells, Ed Benkowski. I consider Dave Schultz one of my coaches. Just all the great people who have helped, with me being successful. Because like I said, you can't do it alone.
Right.
Like I said, I've had great teammates. I got teammates that I consider them like my brothers, like my high school friend, William Waters, Jeff Ruffin, my college teammate. Actually, Will was my college teammate too. Stacy Richmond, Mike Amin, Sam Amin, Theo Calhoun. I could just name, it's just so many people that I wouldn't be where I am without those great people, in my life, and it's like, I'm blessed to have those people in my life.
Amen, man. That's the thing. I ask a lot of people that question, and you hear the toughness, the discipline, but one of the ones that's my favorite is just the people you get to meet just through being in wrestling. You meet some of the craziest, most intense, but also the most caring people you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah. They inspire me. I got to tell you one more quick one.
Hit me, baby.
I have a wrestler.
I got all day.
I got to wrestle Rayvon Foley. Now, this guy, you'll be hearing from him. This guy, he goes to Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talk about people that you meet and things like that, but from the things that this kid has I've seen in his life, talking about wrestlers, he motivates me. Like a lot of times, people have coaches and, you talk about, your coach, what your coach did for you and stuff like that. But he did, people that I've coached, they do things for me. They motivate me because when I see people go through struggle and things they do, that just inspires me, because you see things in life every day. I see people going through this COVID-19 and some of these people losing their job. I saw a guy yesterday on TV, has a restaurant, and he might lose his restaurant, but he's still making food, serving food for people.
Right.
And people like that, they motivate me. Like this Rayvon Foley that I'm talking about, all the things I've seen in his life.
Like what? Because I know the name. What's his story?
Just the things. I don't want to tell all his
stuff. Dirty laundry. Yeah.
Things in his life that I tell, like Rayvon, he says stuff to me. Fish, thanks for things you've done for me, but he just don't. I thank him for the things he's done for me.
Yeah.
Just the things that he goes through. When I see, that makes me tough. That helps me with my wrestling. People talk about wrestlers being tough. I get my toughness from seeing when people go through tragedies or they go through stuff. Because then, I don't complain. I can't complain, because, hey, if they can go through it and be positive, then I'm going to be positive.
Yeah.
So anything, you throw anything in my way, I'm going to handle it. And I'm not just going to handle it. I'm going to handle it in a positive way. I'm going to spin it in a positive way.
And you said it the best, man. Like when you went through that sickness or even now with your kids, like you get to show them every day the positive impact wrestling can make. So you're the example for those kids and, you learn from them going through that struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And even you, man, this is just seeing you, promoting wrestling, doing this, getting the perspective from all these different people. You just said you just talked to Kendi Monday, and then someone's going to look in this, and Kendi Monday, probably said something that inspires someone,
For sure.
Finding out what his story is, how did he become so successful? How did he become, I think the first African-American Olympic champ,
Isn't that crazy? Of all the wrestlers, he was the first one ever. That's amazing to me. Yeah.
That's great, And so this is good that you're doing something like this.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
That's great. It's like I wish we had more people, doing these type of things to promote such a wonderful sport. Wonderful sport.
Well, it means a lot, sir. Thank you.
Done so much for me.
Well, this conversation will stick with me for a long time. I can't wait to meet in person, man, and we'll tell some more stories because I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I look to be friends for many years, Mr. Fisher.
I appreciate it. You made me comfortable because first when you were telling me about this, I was like, man, I don't know about this, because like I said, I've never done Skype or anything like that.
Yeah.
The most I've been on the computer, this year because we have meetings at school meetings on
Zoom
and all that stuff, and like crazy.
And all great things must come to an end. If you want to hear more from the podcast, text Wrestle to 555-888. That's Wrestle to 555-888. You can also find us on Instagram, Wrestling Changed My Life, Twitter, Ryan_N_Warner, as well as our website, WrestlingChangedMyLife.com. Take care, y'all. 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 Take care, y'all.